Well, just before I introduce our next guest on the program, a conversation off air was on citizenship by birth and naturalization, particularly for towns as mega as Lagos and the FCT. Some persons are not citizens by birth, but have stayed in these regions for over 3 or more decades, and by rights should be citizens by naturalization. But some of that is not the case. Our next guest is one who qualifies to be a citizen by naturalization because he stayed in Abuja for more than 3 decades. I'm talking about Reverend Dr. Simon Amonyi. Good morning to you, Reverend Doctor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, you qualify in some sorts to speak about the impact of the projects we're seeing haven't been commissioned at the start of the administration. 2 years down the line, 2 weeks might not even be enough for the projects that have been built to be commissioned. But when we talk about the direct impact on what dwellers of the FCT and the 6 area councils can expect from this, what's that one word that comes to mind in terms of characterizing the impacts of these projects?
If I were to speak from the standpoint of inhabitants, that's including residents and also indigenes, I would say for indigenes, maybe very little. It may be harsh, but it may be very little. While for residents, maybe a little more. Because you look at the spread of opportunities and the dynamics of activities within the FCT, you realize that the indigenous people, of course, they have quite a huge number and all of that. But then urban activities, the activities that bring people into the city center, these amenities and facilities that have been made available, especially in the area of transport infrastructure, as was harped upon by the previous speaker, you realize that not many people will have activities that bring them into the city center. All these areas talked about, but those that are employed, those that are within the government structure and of activities, it has a huge impact, as it will make transportation easier. It will make moving from point A to B. The time it will take in traffic will be very, very minimal. It means that you'll be able to do a lot of things within a short period of time. However, remembering how large Abuja is, the spread of the city itself, and also the 6 area councils and the wards within them, these areas can be very, very, the distance can be huge. So you're going to look about, other impacts that it will have upon the environment and also and the infrastructures themselves that have now been constructed. So you see that I'm talking about 2 sides of maybe the same coin. Some people are going to have a huge impact as to make mobility within the FCT very easy for many. But for others, it's going to be quite a challenge, as many activities don't bring them into the city center. They are just within their area councils, within their ward, within their hamlets and villages, just doing their thing. And they may not really have a celebration activity towards these projects themselves.
Now talking about this project spread, which you have talked about, and it's very important to note that there are basic indicators. One, quality and access to primary health. The other aspect is also in terms of social amenities across board, water, electricity. What's your assessment of the need for governance to trickle down to these 6 area councils? Remember, it's not like they do not have council chairmen, but the conversation on this spotlight that is always on the city centers, one that the MCT minister has drawn to himself. There's the tendency for some of these council chairmen to hide under that spotlight, and much in focus is not on them and their performance, with the need for governance to trickle down.
You are absolutely correct. Not that, let me put it this way, it's not as if the chairmen and councillors within these areas are deliberately trying to dodge the spotlight, but it's the fact that the spotlight is so huge. Right now, especially with the present administration, the media, the media coverage and all of that is so huge that even if the chairman and councillors and the area councils were doing quite a lot, we most likely would notice it because of the so much attention that have been thrown via the media on the activities within the city centers and the minister of the FCT himself, and that is something to look at. However, we could actually give some of these local government chairmen their roses where they deserve it. the work they've been doing in their own area within their little budget and activities that they're able to carry out is quite amazing in many places. Yes, the major trunk routes and all of that are being done. Like you talked about healthcare, maybe the hospitals, both maybe we'll say secondary and tertiary, within the city are receiving a lot of attention. But then when you go to the the ward level, when you come to the polling unit level, I don't know how that goes with you, but when you go down to the boots on the floor, and you talk about the people within the localities themselves, you see that a lot of these projects do not really make access, whether for electricity, whether for water, whether for healthcare. So that responsibility falls back to the local government chairman and those within their purview, and they're doing quite a lot of work from the ones I've been able to see, especially within Buhari and Amak. They're doing quite a lot within the resources they have and the time that they also have. So I would say the spotlight from the city center is so huge that it may drown the lights that these persons are trying to shine, but I can also say that the impact is good. However, this major project within the city centers, their impact only just lies in the city centers. It does not really go to these rural areas, like the speaker before me mentioned places around Gwagwalada and talking about Buhari. But when you go within Buhari, there are communities within Buhari. You're talking from Galwi to Igu to Kaima and all those other places, to Katampe and the rest of them. You realize that the impact of this work really does not reach those people down there. And you're talking about primary healthcare centers there that maybe may not have stable electricity to keep vaccines that they may need for immunization, some of the drugs that they require. You're talking about maybe healthcare personnel there having to go get them from pharmacists around or pharmacy around to be able to give prescriptions and all of those kind of things. And I think those are the places where attention should be thrown more, and the local government chairman and those within their purview should be able to step it up a little bit. Maybe they should also jostle for some of the spotlight themselves to throwing the activities out there and letting everybody know that, come on, we're doing something down here, you need to come take a look to.
Now when we talk about the concept of development, it is more worrisome that development from the grassroots, particularly with emphasis on education as a driver of development, there's been issues with strike.
Yeah.
Even within the FCT, the central city areas, particularly government schools, have been on strike, and this is closely related to remuneration of teachers.
Very much.
It's been a topic that even the FCT minister had addressed and said that this is supposed to be budgetary provisions domiciled with the area councils, and why is this issue still dwelling to us in the 21st century, 2025 to be particular, issues of poor remuneration for teachers and days lost to strike for children in such schools?
Yeah, in primary schools and maybe junior secondary schools. It's quite unfortunate, but let me say the teachers and administrators within this educational sector must have exhausted every other avenue before they had to take this strike, so that to make their grievances or their expectation public. Yes, it is true that the strikes are ongoing. In a manner of speaking, I would say I support the strike, because if you go down to the area councils, that's the local governments, for those, you see that the payment of teachers is in two ways. Maybe I don't know how much of this our viewers know, but it's in two. You have those that are under the universal primary education, and then you have those that are under the local government, that are paid from the local government's own provisions. Now, in many cases, you realize that there is quite a difference, especially when the issue of minimum wage came up of about, I think it's about 70,000 or thereabout. So some persons that this discrepancy affect quite a lot, came out to say, come on, we are not getting this. But those that are under SUBEB, they call them, that the State Universal Basic Education Board and the rest of them, seem to be a little bit more comfortable. And I think that is where the disparity lies, and then the drag, began to pick up some steam. But at this point that it has come to the attention of the FCT minister and the present administration, I believe something that should be handled with as much dispatch as possible, because our young men and women, that is the children that should be in school, are forced out of school due to strike as affecting remuneration. Like you said, it's not a good outing for us at all. It does not speak well of the FCT, which have come to live and love all these years. So it should be something that have been resolved a long time back. But remember, it's not only the teachers that are on strike also. Local government staff are on strike. It's not only the teachers.
Some healthcare workers as well.
Healthcare workers are on strike and all of that. So this should be something that should be addressed, not just the teachers alone, but also looking at the local government structure completely. And whatsoever it is, I think FCT is ours. Everybody, each and every one of us is contributing.
It's a stakeholder.
Yes.
In the best part of, say, 3 decades, which you've stayed within the FCT, it's good to have perspective. How would you say this development has varied? You've come and you've seen at least 2 or 3 FCT ministers and administrations.
4.
4. How would you judge the progress in terms of development?
It's quite interesting, and it's really, really accelerated. However, there is a challenge that personally, I want to thank your platform for giving me this to be able to talk about this. Due to the huge population of persons trying to get into the FCT, development is going faster than government is able to catch up with. And that's why you have a lot of illegal settlements or informal settlements around the FCT that sometimes causes a lot of problems here and there, especially in the area of health, that's environmental sanitation and the rest of them, and also some of the criminal activities within the FCT. The speed at which people are settling, trying to access housing, trying to access electricity, water, and the rest of that it's a lot. And again, within the various administrations that I have experienced or have been able to live through, I've seen quite concerted efforts to see that Abuja is that city that we all will be proud of to live in and also to grow in. And it's quite interesting from those that came in and they just want to do their thing, and then to those that had presidential backing and the massive demolitions that we experienced between 2007 to around 2017 or thereabout. We had a huge demolition activity
under Nasser
El-Rufai, and then you had the reconstructions and the other activities that were carried on by the present governor of Bauchi. And others that served after him, and up to now that we have the present minister. A lot of work have been done to restructure Abuja and to make it a jewel. And I want to congratulate all of us, not just the administration, but Nigeria and Nigerians at large, and also the black race. Nigeria is one of the few countries that woke up one day and decided that let's go build a federal capital somewhere else. It's very few countries that have been able to achieve this, and so it's a huge thing that Nigeria have done, and everybody should be able to rally around it and make and see it grow, not minding who is the administrator or otherwise, and whatsoever. Everybody have tried to contribute their part, but to ensure that FCT becomes exactly what it was envisioned to be, the center of unity, as it is called, and making it to prosper and making it to work out, just the way it ought to do. So a lot of administrators have come and gone, ministers of the FCT has come and gone, chairmen of local government, councillors at the ward level, and everybody have made their own contribution in the best way they can. So now it falls on the present administration to also build on what they have done. But one of the things I want to call for, in order to avoid some of the experiences we had with this whole demolition thing, and even up till now, yes, like the recent one that we had, was that in Gishiri, also where there was in this demolition activity. I think we should outgrow that strategy. The FCT should be able to move ahead of settlement. We know people who come into these areas. We know whether, we know that people are going to settle. And so the government should make every effort that within the next few years, maybe within the next 3-4 years, that development goes ahead of settlement. Not that the settlement is already there and then you're trying to do developments around it, but the development should go ahead of the settlement to be able to dictate where settlements should be, what sizes they should be, and also what kind of infrastructure should make available so that those within that settlement will be able to have. I think that should be the next phase that we should go to. I think there was that's where I suggest we go to. But before then, we had the assimilation. Before then, we had the relocation. Different strategies used by different ministers to be able to guide development within the FCT. And I believe going forward, the present administration should see to laying the groundwork whereby we have this agency that's called the Satellite Development Agency. I believe more power should be given it to be able to guide development going forward. And development control and its agencies will be able to come, to ensure that it's more of a proactive thing rather than a reactive thing, the way settlements are done within the FCT. But again, Abuja is quite a dream come true. To imagine that by 1976 there was nothing here, and within this space up till now you have this huge ecosystem, you have this huge city, the seat of power for Nigeria, the hub of so many activities for a lot of people. So it's something that Nigeria should pat itself on the shoulder and say, yes, well done, you've done this well.
Now, talking about this huge rural-urban migration, owing to the attractiveness and the opportunities that abound in cities like Abuja, there have also been conversations around internally displaced persons. I remember during the FCT 2025 budget defense, Senator Ali Ndume made a case for the need for Almajiri settlements, one at which the FCT minister frowned out and said that the FCT is not particularly disposed to doing that because a lot of them are not indigent of the FCT, and hence that would only breed a ground for illegalities, criminalities and whatnot. But on these conversations for some settlements of some sort, or maybe a mass housing project, how do you prefer a solution to some of the challenges that abound?
I join my voice with that of the minister to say that suggestion, though wonderful as it looks, has a potential to get us into a situation that will spiral out of control very, very fast. If we remember the level of insecurity we have in our country, there's so many of the issues that we have around the nation. If you create that environment, within a short time, you're going to have quite a huge number of activity. Rather, some of these things should be streamlined to the states, to be pushed into other places. And then remembering that Abuja is designed, the design of Abuja it calls for efficiency and also excellence. And since it is the center of power, it should be made to have that grandeur that it should carry. However, there's also the issue of functionality. The city should be able to function. It should be able to go just beyond housing just being the seat of power and having these individuals and those that are in charge of the administration of the Federal Republic just here, but should also should have functions. Now, when that happens, you're not talking about the issue of infrastructure, especially mass housing activities. In Abuja, I believe that the need for mass housing is real, is serious. However, the emphasis on formal mass housing have made it in such a way that it has become expensive. It is extremely expensive to rent houses in Abuja and to build or to buy property within the FCT. While of course that is there is no shock there, there's no surprise there, it's to be expected. However, we have done very little to explore the informal housing sector. What do I mean by that? You have communities. Let me use an example of places like within the satellite town, like from Karishi to like Pape to like parts of Buari and some of the places I mentioned, part of Gwagwalada to Abaji to Yaba and all of that have informal. Let me call them informal since they were not planned out from the onset. But then you have people go into these places and then build something for themselves. However, to formalize it, provide street names, provide electricity, provide water supply, and let the people build the kind of houses that they can afford to either build or buy or rent and then stay. And then providing a robust network whereby people can move from point A to point B. It will reduce this pressure on these urban housing schemes that are so expensive for most of the rural dwellers, if you want to use that expression, or for most of those that are not within the higher earners or echelons within society. But making it in such a way that Abuja becomes, let me say, suitable across board, whether you're a high income earner or you're just struggling and try to find your feet, it becomes possible. But when we put all our focus on we've got to build a massive estate somewhere there and build something, so it's automatically it's going to be huge. The expenses is going to be high, and then being able to buy these properties or to subscribe to them is going to be huge, and especially that the mortgage system around us and all of that seem not to have found its feet yet. It's going to be a problem. But if we also tap into the non-formal, it could work. You have, places that people using all kind of building materials and building designs towards their budget and towards their taste, but then making it in such a way that it is formalized. You have access, you have electricity, you have water, you have those amenities that they require for life and living until things improve and move on. And I think that will reduce the seeming pressure for housing that we find within the FCT.
Well, we must thank you, Reverend Dr. Simon, for taking our time to share your thoughts on the impact of the Renewed Hope projects on development and governance.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate you, and we're wishing you the best of the rest of the week ahead.
And you too.